Okay, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. A very good morning to you all. Thank you for coming. I actually never expected that this room would be filled, but an amazing crowd, mashallah. Amazing. A round of applause for you guys, please, first. Okay, so today, I think you all know what we are doing here. But before we go to our main segment, that Cynthia McKinney will be speaking to you all. We are actually it's unbelievable that she's here. But I'm so glad that she's here. But before that, I would really request Atif sir to speak a few words for you all here. Please, Atif sir.
A very good morning to all, and Assalamu alaikum. I don't want to take more than a minute. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for joining. I just want to mention a couple of names because what I believe in my life is connection that matters. So we are actually trying to make these connections for so long. And you all know we have a student in BBA, Mehraj. I want to mention his name. Cynthia is here because of him. So thank you very much, Mehraj, to make this connection. And thank you very much to our Honorable Vice Chairman for giving us this opportunity to make this happen. And of course, thank you very much, Salihin, to organizing everything. And thank you very much, everyone. Let's enjoy her words. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so now I would like to request our Ariful Haq sir, our Vice Chairman, sir, to come to the stage and deliver a few words. Please, sir.
Guys, Assalamu alaikum, good morning. So thank you very much for inviting me here, and I'm honored by the distinguished guests to be here in this seminar, and I hope they will enjoy talking with you also. I'll not waste the time just speaking about it, so I'd like them to continue the talk with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Okay, before we go to Cynthia, I'd like to share a few things. Many of you don't know me, do you? Do everybody know me here?
Yes, sir.
Amazing. Okay, to those who don't know me, don't know my background, we have a common background. And Cynthia is from United States of America. I lived in United States of America for a while. I studied there. I studied at Pittsburgh State University in Midwest, Kansas. And basically, I grew up there, kinda. As in my college life, my university life was there. And I graduated and then I came back. And now, you guys, I think I teach most of you. I taught some of you, and I'm teaching several of you right now. So, before we go to Cynthia, I would like to show you a short clip about her, and then she will be on the stage. So, can we see the video, please?
It is up to us to change Washington, D.C. We have the power to sweep the Congress. We don't need to send not one more dime and not one more dollar to Israel. My name is Cynthia McKinney. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. I am a child of the U.S. South and a beneficiary of the civil rights movement, including the struggles of Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and countless others. I ran for President of the United States on the Green Party ticket in 2008. In 1988, I ran for the Georgia General Assembly, and I was successful, so I was sworn in. My father was already in the Georgia General Assembly, and we became the first father-daughter legislative team in the history of the United States. When I won the election that sent me to the Georgia General Assembly,
our enemy is a radical network of terrorists. They hate our freedoms, our freedom of religion, our freedom of speech, our freedom to vote and assemble and disagree with each other.
when we I introduced articles of impeachment against George Bush, Dick Cheney, and Condoleezza Rice. I didn't stop the things that were important to me, and I became a target again, and I lost in 2006. The sad fact is that the pro-Israel lobby is able to amass very quickly large sums of money and make winners out of candidates. After that, I decided that, if the Democratic Party isn't going to represent peace, then I'm going to leave the Democratic Party, because quite frankly, the Democratic Party had already left me anyway. So I decided to join the Green Party, and the Green Party asked me to run for President of the United States. Today, I am announcing my campaign as a Green Party candidate for President of the United States. It is time for a new beginning. Our president ended up spending $700 million, and he won. And unfortunately, politics is about money. And the Green Party, we didn't have very much money, but we had a lot of commitment to making our country a better place, not just for the people who live inside the United States, but also so that our country would be a partner for the advancement of mankind. But the system has been so corrupted now by the presence of special interest money that the money has taken precedence and priority over the people's values. It is quite difficult to get a special interest candidate representing a special interest political party to actually represent. The first time I tried to get to Gaza was in December 2008. I received a phone call on the first day of Operation Cast Lead, which was Israel's assault on Gaza, asking me if I wanted to go to Gaza. I said, yes, of course. I saw, despite the depleted uranium, the helicopter gunships, the F-16s, the nuclear triad, everything that Israel threw at the people of Palestine, there was love and there was life in Gaza. The spirit of humanity, indomitable. If we respect this planet, there is abundance enough for all of us. We don't have to fight each other if we get to know each other and are willing to share.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay, so for those who are, like some of us are a little slow in English, right? তাদের জন্য আমি একটু বাংলায় বলে দিচ্ছি। So Cynthia McKinney হচ্ছেন she comes from United States of America. She United States এ ছিলেন মানে United States এ তার বাড়ি এবং she comes from Atlanta, Georgia. এবং her dad was a policeman and mother was a nurse, I believe. And সে ওখান থেকে এখন সে বাংলাদেশে এসেছেন and she's an assistant professor at North South University. এবং সে আজকে আপনাদের সামনে বক্তব্য রাখবেন। সবচেয়ে বড় যে বিষয়টা সেটা হচ্ছে আপনারা সবাই মোটামুটি ইউনাইটেড স্টেটসের প্রেসিডেন্টদেরকে হয়তো বা চিনেন, রাইট? সো সে কিন্তু ইউনাইটেড স্টেটসের প্রেসিডেন্টের জন্য রান করেছিলেন। সো আপনারা আজকে এমন একজনের বক্তব্য শুনবেন যে কিনা মানে ইউনাইটেড স্টেটসের প্রেসিডেন্টের জন্য রান করেছে এবং আপনাদের সামনে ইউনিভার্সিটি অফ স্কলার্সে আজকে আপনাদের সামনে তার বক্তব্য রাখবেন। সো further ado, let's welcome Cynthia McKinney.
Thank you very much. And so now, are you going to stay up here with me, or am I going to have to stay
You have
by myself?
by yourself.
Oh no. So I need to first of all thank Miraj, who is a student here, for facilitating my arrival and my invitation here. I have to thank Professor Atik for extending the invitation, and his lovely wife, who visited me at North South University. I also have to thank Professor Salaheen, where are you? Yes, Professor Salaheen, for the warm welcome. University of Scholars welcome. And then, of course, the Vice Chairman, thank you very much for your presence here. So, this morning I was told, well, you can talk about anything you want to talk about. Well, you know, I actually would prefer if I were told what to talk about, because I don't know what you guys are interested in. So maybe I'll spend like a minute or so talking about myself, and then I would love to hear from you guys as well, because that's the way I learn, is through dialogue. And so hopefully you'll have some questions that you can ask me, and I will be able to respond to your questions. So, I was born in a civil rights movement. I come from the southern part of the United States, the state of Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, where we actually did not have in Georgia we had the civil rights movement, but we had the sort of the thinkers behind the organization of the civil rights movement. And basically in the United States you had Malcolm X, who represented the North, and he was a Muslim, went to Hajj, and then began to understand what a wonderful religion Islam is. And he brought his knowledge and awareness of when he went to Hajj and came back to the United States, he brought that back to the African American community inside the United States and opened up a whole new horizon for us. Then you had Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was sort of agitating in the South for the right to vote, because after the U.S. Civil War, most of the African American community lived in the South. So that's where the Southern Black Power was. And in Georgia, Georgia is the home of Andrew Young, who later went to the United Nations as the first African American UN ambassador, U.S. ambassador to the UN. We had the birthplace of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So all of the personalities that you might read about if you look at U.S. history, they were right there inside Atlanta. And so it was impossible for me to grow up as a child of conscience. So my father was a man of conscience, and that meant that he personally was involved in any aspect of the civil rights movement in which he could be. And that passed down to me. So you have probably seen pictures of Ku Klux Klan members wearing those hoods and looking really crazy. Their job was to terrorize the African American community and stop the demand for equal rights, the demand for human rights. But my dad took me there. There were movements to sit in, civil disobedience, the kinds of movements that I have witnessed nascently emerging here in Bangladesh, like, for example, the no taxes on private education movement. I was present at that time in Bangladesh. The Safe Roads movement. I'm also proud to say, I don't know if I should since this is being recorded, that many of my students, my political science students, participated in those movements. I expected them to participate in those movements as I participated as best I could in the changing of domestic policy in the United States through the civil rights movement. And then through my activism, I was able to go to the United States Congress. And there I was able, because I had already read, my academic preparation, there is no substitute for being prepared. When the door of opportunity opens for you, it is your preparation that will allow you to walk through that door with self-confidence. So I was able to get elected. It was very difficult because I had no money, no nothing. I just had a reputation for being, as Al Gore called me, spunky. So the opportunity to run for Congress came, and I stayed there with much difficulty for 12 years. 12 years in the United States Congress allowed me to see things that the average person born and raised in the United States will never see. I was able to see how politics in the United States really operates. And it's a dirty, nasty, ugly game. And it's only become worse. So for the 12 years, I advocated peace instead of war. That got me into a lot of trouble. I advocated human rights without exception, especially human rights for Palestinians. That got me into even more trouble. And a lot of people ask me, well, Cynthia, how'd you end up in Bangladesh? You go against the big boys in the United States and you'll end up in Bangladesh if you're lucky. And that's what happened with me. And Bangladesh has absolutely been wonderful to me. So, as a result of having been there and seen and learned, then I decided that my values, I had to look deep inside myself because I was on the news every night and it was not pretty. I was being castigated, vilified. One media guy said, lynch her. And if you know anything about the United States, that's the punishment that was reserved for Africans who had been imported to the United States as slaves. If they weren't good slaves, they were lynched, hanging from the tree. And one media guy said, lynch her. And when my staff were so afraid, the congressional staff was so afraid, they reported it to the FBI, And we only found out later that the FBI was actually paying that journalist to say those things. So anyway, the powers that be were organized by the pro-Israel lobby. That means the people who put Israel first and the people of the United States last. Those people organized themselves and mobilized their money to put me out of Congress, utilizing electronic voting machines. Do you guys have electronic voting machines here in Bangladesh?
Yes.
Okay. Now, to steal an election, you don't need electronic voting machines, do you? But electronic voting machines make it vastly easier to steal elections. And it wasn't this documentary, but there's another documentary about my effort to get reelected and how it was thwarted by the use of the electronic voting machines. There have been lots and lots and lots of documentaries about the hackability of electronic voting machines. Those of you in computer science, you already know this. And I'm a feature in most of those documentaries because mine was the first case in the United States. But anyway, so I was able to find a home here in Bangladesh, but before that, I decided that I would go anywhere the United States was dropping bombs. So I have visited refugee camps. I have visited Libya, Syria several times, Libya several times, Pakistan, wherever the United States is dropping bombs. I decided that I would go there so I could understand. And in fact, I'll close with this. My latest book was published in 2020. And the name of the book is When China Sneezes. Because I went to China, I asked some of my friends. So I led a delegation of 20 people to go to China so we could understand whether the United States was lying about the way Muslims are treated in China, or was the United States telling the truth? And we started in Beijing. From Beijing, we went to Xi'an. From Xi'an, we went to Dunhuang. From Dunhuang, we went to Urumqi. And throughout the entire trip, we lived with Muslims. We stayed with Muslims in Muslim neighborhoods. We ate. We tried to immerse ourselves in the Islamic part of China. Unfortunately, while we were there, something happened in Wuhan. And so the book that we were supposed to produce about Islam in China became SARS coronavirus 2. And so that book, the title of it is When China Sneezes. But let me just say briefly, everything that you think you know about SARS coronavirus 2, 99% of it is a lie. It's a lie, including to those people who are in the biosciences. So now we have a disease, COVID-19, whose political objective trumps the medical cure. I'll say that again. the disease, the politics of the disease trump the medical cure. And so now we're seeing, as was the case with HIV, when HIV first came on the scene, it was all about the politics of HIV and not very much about the treatment and the cure. And now we have the same scenario with SARS coronavirus 2. So, the reason I hope that you are here at University of Scholars is so that you can learn to think. The best gift, the most important gift that the University of Scholars can give to each and every one of you is the ability to think. Because once you do your research, you learn how to research, you learn how to pose a question, you learn how to answer that question. And then, because of the self-confidence that you acquire for the 4 or 5 years that you are here, you are able to articulate that question in a public forum. That's the way you move not only yourself forward, but that's the way you can move Bangladesh forward. And then the people in the United States who are completely under the thumb of the pro-Israel lobby, we need you guys to help us move forward. Can you imagine that if Bangladesh says no to the WHO, or if Bangladesh says no to the United States, as they did when the United States wanted to put a military base at St. Martin, that you empower those of us who are waging a struggle inside the United States, just by you also saying no. Last thing. No, I teach my political science students. No is the most important political word. Those students who marched back in the 1950s for the right to speak Bangla, the Bangla language movement that spawned the International Mother Language Day, those students said no. When you say no, there is a consequence. And what was the consequence of those students? Some of them were killed. But the price that they paid allows you to speak Bangla wherever you might go, and to be proud of your Bangla language. So saying no is important. And in my political science course, I kind of teach students how to say no by thinking and questioning and analyzing and then having self-confidence to speak publicly. You will say no at some point in your career. And it's okay to say no. Okay? Okay, I think I've said enough. And now it's your opportunity to educate me.
I kind of have several questions for you. Okay, usually I get a question. As many of you know that I lived in the States for a while, and I always get one question that why did you come back? Like why? So I usually have to reply with the same words, okay, I'm the only son, I always wanted to come back, that's why. But my question to you is, I know several of the kids over here, they probably want to go away after they graduate. Probably they want to go for master's program or somewhere. Like, do you agree for them to move away from their country? Maybe for education and then come back, or maybe you get educated over there, maybe any country, I don't know, maybe Europe or North America or Australia and whatnot. But do you agree that if they want to settle down there, that's okay? Whereas most of the Bangladeshi students or adults have that tendency to go away from their country. Do you agree with it? Like, what's your opinion about it? Staying abroad or coming back to home? What do you think?
I think the only way Bangladesh can move forward is for its children to come back home. And also, there is a component to your education and the expectations that you are kind of laden with as Bangladeshis. But the most important sort of realization has to be that the world is still a colonized world. The world is still neo-colonized. And the way you think is still a colonial mindset. So that things that are not Bangladeshi are taboo, passe, old-fashioned, whatever. And things that are Bangladeshi are second-rate. So that notion has to be shed. At NSU, I hope I'm not going to step on some toes. But I'm used to stepping on toes, right? But at NSU, the most coveted internship is with British American Tobacco. Every NSU business student wants to do an internship at BAT. So I ask my students, I say, well, what does BAT produce? Cigarettes. I say, okay. So now, what do cigarettes do to the human body? They kill you. So, the most prized job in Bangladesh is to work for a company that kills Bangladeshis. Now, does that make sense to you? And then the students say, well, I still want to go there. So I had one student, brilliant young man. He went to BAT, he got his dream job. And then he came to me and he said, Miss, everybody who works there is depressed because they know what they're doing. They're getting fat paychecks, but they know that what they're doing is wrong. Now, this makes me think I need to check in with my student so I can find out if he's still there or did his conscience get the better of him and he leave. So now, I have a friend, a very close friend. She's visited me in Bangladesh twice. Her name is Catherine Austin Fitz. And you might know about her. She's been very active on the power of money during this whole COVID thing because, of course, you know that the ultimate objective of those who have orchestrated all of this is a cashless society. And so you won't be able to pay in cash, and just like Justin Trudeau did recently, they can shut you down, shut your access to your bank account down if you take a political position that goes against the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, Israel Firster, globalist, neocon, ziocon, whatever you want to call that group of people. She has come up with a concept that I teach also in my course. It's called the Great Culling Machine. Google, Facebook, Silicon Valley, going to the United States, if the world is divided in an apartheid structure so that those settler colonizing countries, also known as the white countries, the European countries, Western European in particular, if those countries, if you go there as a cog in their wheel, then you have been successfully culled by them. In the same process, you've got Eid ul-Adha coming up, right? And you're going to select an animal for sacrifice. And you're going to go to the market and you're going to select whatever animal fits within your budget. And you're going to have some criteria by which you judge, I want this one, not that one. Well, that's the same way Google, Facebook, Silicon Valley are doing you. When this government decided that they wanted to pay the ready-made garment workers more money, the IMF flew into Bangladesh, flew into Dhaka, and said, oh no, you can't raise the living standard of the RMG workers because we need cheap clothing. Now, are the people of Bangladesh worth more than cheap clothing to the Western countries? Are you worth more? Are you worth more?
Yes.
If you think that you are worth more, then you won't go to the United States and become a cog in the great culling machine and be culled, or the United States, or Germany, or France, or Italy, or any of those countries, Australia. You won't go there, or at least if you go there, you'll acquire knowledge and then you'll come back and you'll bring that knowledge back to share with further with Bangladeshis. So the answer is no. I don't agree with that.
Thank you for explaining that. Hopefully, next time, whoever comes to me, you'll remember her speech. Right? Why I came back.
You keep it recorded.
I am recording that in the camera right there. Okay, we have two beautiful young ladies here who have some questions for you. Do you want to ask yours first? Please, ma'am.
Assalamualaikum. How important it is to be involved politics for students? From what age the people should involve in politics?
From what age should people be involved in politics? Politics determines really where you're going to be born, how you're going to be born, how you're going to die, where or whether or not you're buried. All of that, politics plays a role in determining. So should you be involved in politics? You're already involved in politics by your very existence. The moment you got your passport from the passport office, that's politics. The moment you buy an airline ticket and you go from Dhaka to Chattogram, that's politics, because it's politics that determines if you're going to take a bus there or a train there or if you can fly there. All of the decisions about how you live your life are political decisions made either by you or by someone on your behalf. But I happen to also teach the Green Book written by Muammar Gaddafi in my political science class, because there's no one who can make decisions on your behalf better than you can make a decision for yourself. That means then that you have to study political structures, political systems, structures of governance, so that you can understand what system works best for you. And if you don't have the opportunity to choose that system, then you have to take the steps necessary in order to change those circumstances. So many people in the United States now are doing exactly what many Bangladeshis do. So people in the United States are looking for someplace else to go. Many people in the United States are looking at Russia. And they're saying, oh, we can get free land, we can start a farm, we can do everything we want to do. And Russia encourages groups of people to come and get the land. So, in the United States also, people are taking over small cities and reshaping the governance of those cities. That happened in Jackson, Mississippi. So is there a place, it's a little bit more difficult when you've got 168 million people and you're located in a country that's a little bit smaller, the size of, what, maybe New York. So you've got a lot of people, and the other thing is never think that there are too many Bangladeshis. Never, ever, ever think that you are overpopulated, because you're not. It's a matter of how the human resource that Bangladesh has is organized and used. And the proper organization and the proper utilization would mean that Bangladesh would be much farther along on the political development as well as the economic development. And maybe the reason is that that is not the case is because so much of your brawn and your brains have been exported. Any other questions?
Yes. We have another question right here. Please, ma'am.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. So my question is, what are the lackings over here in the Bangladesh education system compared to the American education system? Yeah.
Okay. Our young questioner believes that there are lackings in the Bangladesh educational system. I'm going to tell you that if there's a lacking, it's over there in the United States. I witnessed, at least you guys want to learn. You guys are eager to learn. And the reason you are here, and really all of the universities in Bangladesh are brimming with students who are eager to learn, because education means something in Bangladesh. Education has ceased to be meaningful in the United States. And I witnessed something, a horrific situation where a police officer inside the United States, must have been 6th grade, which is what? What's 6th grade? Maybe 12 or 11 years old? Literally threw a student against the wall. He picked her up, 11 years old, and threw her against the wall because she was using a cell phone in class. The education system in the United States has ceased to function. It has ceased to exist. And so we also have a problem of a lack of critical analysis, a lack of critical thinking. So if it's on the television, or if it's on the news media, or if it's in the newspapers, then people tend to believe it. So you combine that with a media that lies, knowingly lies, and then you've got a severe problem. Those of you who are familiar with Facebook, which I know all of you are, because Facebook took Bangladesh by storm. But do you know who started Facebook, where that technology came from? The U.S., no, not Zuckerberg, or no other Berg or Stein. It came from research and development from the United States Pentagon. You know what the Pentagon is?
Yes.
The U.S. military. So now, if you have put all of your information on Facebook, who do you think has it? The U.S. military. That's right. Now, do you think in the practice of U.S. foreign policy, them knowing more about Bangladeshi people or less about Bangladeshi people is good? Which is a good situation? For the U.S. military to know more or less about Bangladeshi people? Less is always better. You don't want any intelligence service, including the Bangladeshi intelligence services, but you don't want it, and RAW, the Indian one, you don't want any intelligence service to know anything about you. But when you put that information on the internet, it is there. And I know you guys are hooked on your cell phones, aren't you?
Yes.
And so you are giving your information away. And that information then can be utilized against you. For example, this is slightly different, but still the same. And that is, there's something on the coronavirus. Coronaviruses have lived with human beings for hundreds of thousands of years. So a coronavirus is not anything new. And those of you in the biological sciences, you know that. What is new is the spike protein that resulted in the SARS coronavirus 2. So you have the spike protein that is attached to a coronavirus. And it is that spike protein that when you come into contact with it, allows SARS coronavirus 2 to become first attached in your nose, and then from your nose, go to your lung, and then after it's in your lung to replicate, and then you're in serious trouble if you do, if that happens. You have a product here, you have two products here in Bangladesh. Ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. They stop that replication process. But you can't get it, right? In the US, you can't get it. You can't get it at all. So, but here, I can get it. I shouldn't get too much into this. The point that I'm making is that what you are presented with today has a history. And it's vital that you understand the history, what happened yesterday, so that you don't fall into the trap of behaving in a way that other people want you to behave so that you can become cannon fodder for them. Does that make sense? You don't want to be cannon fodder for anyone. Any other questions?
I think we do. We do have a question from right here. Ma'am, please.
Oh.
It was wonderful listening to you. I have a question for you. As we all know that our world is at stake in terms of pollution, in terms of war, in terms of energy crisis.
Yes.
But in your own experiences, what would you do if you have that power, to globally become peace, and restoring our sustainability as a human being? What we can do?
Well, that's a hard question because we have to understand the use of power. And individually, we have very little power unless you have a position of authority from which you can get power. So I was asked a lot during when I was running for president, what was the first thing you would do? And the first thing I would do as president is bring all of the U.S. troops home, take them off of military bases. Say, for example, in Japan, Japan has 17 U.S. military bases. Is Japan a sovereign state? as a result of having the soldiers from another country on their territory, Japan then only can experience limited sovereignty. So I would bring those soldiers home. As an individual, I think it's most important that you join with other like-minded individuals and that you question everything. If someone of authority tells you that the sky is blue, then you need to go and take a look for yourself. If someone of authority tells you that you should vote with electronic voting machines, then you need to learn everything there is to know about electronic voting machines. If someone tells you that you need to go and work for British American Tobacco or Unilever or any of those colonial and neo-colonial corporations, you need to ask yourself, whose objective is served by me working for them? I can get more taka, but then the taka of all of the Bangladeshi people go to the UK or the US. Does the United States need more Bangladeshi taka? Every time, so my students would laugh at me because my first telephone was a Walton, and they laughed. And I said, why are you laughing? Because they all had iPhones, and so I said, the basic function is that I want people to be able to communicate with me, and I want to be able to communicate with other people. I don't need a telephone to give me status. I don't need to have a telephone to make me feel good about myself. And so all of these other things, that telephones and electronics and everything else, even the clothing, the sports. Bangladesh used to have a sport called Ha-Ki-Ku or something like that. Ha-Do-Do. So now who's playing Ha-Do-Do now? Maybe the British could learn to play Ha-Do-Do. Instead, Bangladeshis go crazy over cricket. I mentioned lungi I get the same result when I discuss lungi and just mention of the word and people start laughing. Why? Why? Do you think blue jeans are more attractive?
Yes.
No, they're not. No, they're not. And I'm happy to see many Punjabis here because you know how unique your identity as a Bangladeshi is? It is absolutely unique. Thank you. And being a Bangladeshi is something for which you should be proud. Mimicry, Edward Said gave us that, but I go all the way back to Frantz Fanon, who first described the reaction of the colonizer and the colonized person. And Frantz Fanon and Edward Said discuss how we try to be like the colonizer. We want to look like the colonizer. I had one student tell me, oh, I can't go outside because I'll get dark, and if I get dark, I can't get a girlfriend. I had one student tell me, I want to be an entrepreneur. He's an MBA student. I want to be an entrepreneur, but I have to network. But all of my life, my parents have told me that I was ugly, and so therefore I'm shy to pass out my business cards. I said, well, why are you shy? He said, because my skin is dark. Just because your skin is dark, you're shy? And so until we deal with the fact, I've been to almost every shop in Bangladesh, and I'm looking for a doll that looks like the people in this room. I've yet to find it. But it's not just Bangladesh, it's all of the colonized and neo-colonized world. Everybody wants to be white. And while you are chasing after that dream to be as much like someone who you are not, you are losing yourself. And you're losing the opportunity to know yourself and to love the people who look like you. I love you because I am aware of all of the tricks of the trade, and then Unilever sells the white cream product. So Unilever is going to get rich because you feel somehow inferior. So stop it. Be proud of your Punjabi and your pajama.
Amazingly explained. I think we have one last question here. We'll take one last question. I think, sir, are you ready?
Thank you so much, madam, for your nice interactive sessions, and we have the opportunity to enjoy it. I have a question which is related to our personal life. That your USA country is more developed than Bangladeshi countries, and most of Bangladeshi young generations have the tendency that they have completed their engineering or the higher educations from Bangladesh, and they want to go to USA for the hands-on salary, and they want to lead an excellent life. And not only USA, but also we have the tendency to go outside the development countries like Russia, USA, and etc. But if the dedicated persons that you leave the USA, that is more development than Bangladeshi peoples, and come our Bangladeshi countries and serve us and give the teaching and get the teaching professions from North South universities. That's what is the difference between these two thinkings? The Swiss thinking that Swiss want to go to outside the Bangladesh and lead get a handsome salary and lead an excellent life. But you come from Bangladesh and that is less valuable than USA. We think that. But what is your advice to these peoples who want to outside the country and leave this Bangladesh?
I think she already answered it, but I think she can elaborate a little bit.
Depends on how you define developed. In Bhutan, they measure quote-unquote development by happiness, gross national happiness. Now, if you consider selfishness, uber selfishness, as being developed, then the U.S. is extremely developed. But I have never seen the kind of sharing that I have witnessed since I've been here in Bangladesh. I took a box of chocolates to someone who had done something nice to me, for me. And I took him this box of chocolates, and I expected, as an American, I expected him to eat the chocolate. He passed that box all around the room to everybody who was in his office. He shared. You're not going to find that in the United States. People don't share. So I think probably like Professor Atif said, being human is the best kind of development, not accumulation of things.
Very well said. Thank you so much, ma'am. I believe our students are honored today to have you, and such words, I really appreciate it. And thank God we recorded it, so it's amazing. Okay.